New Explorer Corps, First Arm, Spinward Operations Area, System J5241. Planet designation, Garden. February 27th, 3152. The last 2 days had been an exercise in absurdity from Wreck Warrior Olivia Mason. She and the others from the New Explorer Corps had landed on the planet the locals referred to as Garden a few days ago. The name fit well, and if there was a bright side, it was the fact that this little planet showed all of the abundance of a successful terraforming effort. Olivia had seen the data on it as she sifted through the files shared by each of the two Draconis Combine factions that claimed to represent the planetary government. The Star League-era terraforming devices held out longer than anyone could have expected, and it paid off with a very pleasant atmosphere and more plants and animals than Olivia had ever seen in a single biome. She had gone out of her way to get outside as often as possible. Finding secluded outdoor locations to dig through all the documentation, it was a welcome reprieve from the walking headaches that were the two planetary chairmen who each claimed to be the only true leader of the planet. Everything having to do with their meetings had to be perfectly equal, down to the seconds spent in one location before heading over to another in the sprawling terraforming complex located midway between the two primary settlements of each faction. After the sixth argument over chair and table placement in this latest meeting room, Olivia had enough. When she excused herself from the room, Levitt looked at her with a pained look on his face. She shrugged with a smirk and said, "Heavy weighs the crown, Lieutenant." Grabbing the pitted steel railing on an outside balcony well away from the nonsense going on inside, Olivia looked out at the range of mountains in the distance. Their snowy peaks promised the kind of solace Olivia craved in that moment. Her eyes slowly fell to the settlement she had learned was called Basilisk. Planetary Chairman Sarah Chen claimed it was the original settlement started by the Combine roughly 500 years ago. That was pretty impressive, though it was tempered in the moment Olivia learned it when the Planetary Chairman Tyler Pollock chimed in from the other side of the conference table to state that it was actually his settlement, Tarragon, which was the original Star League base. Though the locals seemed very proud of their accomplishments, in Olivia's opinion, both settlements looked pretty lackluster. In 500 years, she would have expected sprawling cities and wonders of Star League technology, yet these settlements looked more like backwater outposts. The tallest buildings in each of the settlements was no higher than 5 or 6 stories, and their spaceports were cracked ferrocrete pads that could barely be large enough to hold one mule dropship, though it was pretty clear that neither faction had a functioning dropship. Akif had been put on babysitting duty at the dropship, which included running the drones over each of the settlements to look for anything that might be of concern. Both the Tarragon and Basilisk settlements were walled and had a variety of small arms sites along the battlements. There were obvious signs of conflict between the two factions, and it was abundantly clear in discussions with the leadership that the question of who was actually in charge of Garden was still very open. What Olivia was primarily concerned with was their mech assets, which numbered roughly a lance on each side. They were obviously older models, and from the photos and videos the drone had taken, Olivia spotted several ancient designs that would have been considered antiques even hundreds of years ago. From the state of their disrepair, they weren't that threatening. However, if things got ugly, even in her 11S Thunderbolt and with Akif at her side, their numbers could be a problem. She filed away the concerns for the moment and took a deep breath. "This planet is wasted on the empty heads fighting over it," she said to herself just before the comm chirped on. "Olivia, can you come in here? The locals need your calming presence," Levitt asked, with the sound of bickering in the background. "It is crucially important that you underline with the Draconis Combine that we need the resupply to focus on mining equipment in our western reaches. If we can repair and expand production, we could be a source of valuable minerals," Tyler Pollock stated in elevated volume in an attempt to drown out Sarah Chen's request that agricultural equipment and infrastructure construction machinery take precedence. All the while, Levitt sat at the head of the table looking like he was being tortured. Olivia walked into the room and immediately grabbed the attention of the bickering chairman by rapping her knuckle on the large meeting table. "First of all, shut up. Second of all, keep shutting up. You're bickering about the contents of a resupply mission that might not even happen because, since you don't seem to understand, you're a tiny planet in the middle of nowhere that the Combine forgot existed 200 years ago. If they deem you worthy of a future contact, I doubt you'll have any say about what they send, if anything, other than a new boss that you both can follow. Olivia said with enough conviction that it left both the chairmen speechless, though not for long. How dare you speak to me like that? You are a mech warrior. You should be down scrubbing armor plates or something, Sarah Chen sputtered as she adjusted her tunic. Olivia's eyebrow went up and she pursed her lips for a moment as she buried the urge to reach across the table and drag the chairman across it. Once they hear of my excellent leadership of the settlement, the Combine is sure to send aid, Pollock stated in a way that suggested he only half believed it. Levitt sat up in the chair and tapped the table with his finger before saying, Maybe, maybe not. However, all of this is premature. You seem to want us to play Kingmaker here, or at least proxy to the Kingmaker, and it's just not in the cards. Like I said in our first meeting and repeatedly since, make your case in any documentation you want to share, and we'll take it back to the Combine for you. It'll be up to them to decide what to do. We need assurances that you're taking this seriously, in the interests of the Combine and the true leadership of Garden, Chairman Chen said with her arms crossed across her chest. Olivia ran her fingers through her raven black hair and leaned forward, putting both hands onto the table. You have our word and the fact that we're literally being paid by the Combine to bring back news exactly like your presence out here. If we could just get a tentative recognition of Tarragon's claims, this would all go much more smoothly, Chairman Pollock stated, which immediately led to shouting from Chairman Chen. Those claims are fraudulent when your scumbag grandfathers forged them, and they're fraudulent today. You treasonous worms will face the firing squad when the Combine hears this, Pollock growled across the table while glaring at Chen. Olivia groaned in frustration and looked over at Levitt, who looked up at her and shook his head. He pushed himself away from the table and stood up before stating, We're leaving in 48 hours. You have 47 to make sure I have a digital copy of everything you want shared with the Combine. Good day. Olivia walked beside Levitt as they made their way down the hallway out of the aged structure. Is it that bad that I want an asteroid to wipe them both out? Olivia asked. We won't be that lucky. Let's get the science team packed up as soon as possible and get ready to go early if needed. I'm sick of trying to play peacemaker, Levitt responded. You got it, Lieutenant, Olivia said, turning her head to get another look at the mountains. New Explorer Corps, First Arm, Spinward Operations Area, System J5241, Planet Designation, Garden, February 28th, 3152. You've got to be friggin' kidding me, Olivia sighed into her comm link from the command chair of her Thunderbolt. Akeith's voice came back quick. I'm afraid it's real and it's stupid. Turns out you were right about suiting up for this handover. Both the Tarragon and Basilisk lances of mechs were on the move toward each other, and it looked like each was intent on being the first to reach the two Explorer Corps mechs that stood at the entrance of the terraforming complex. My expectations cannot be low enough for this nonsense, Olivia replied as she looked over the sensor data coming in from the two groups of mechs. Over the open channel, a voice Olivia recognized as belonging to Leon Krask stated, Planetary Chairman Pollock has decreed that only the informational packet provided by Tarragon should go with you back to Combine space. Including any others would be harmful to the people of Garden. We cannot allow it. Olivia keyed her systems to full power and told Akeith to do the same on her private channel. She was about to respond to Krask's statement when Simon Chen spoke up first. He said, Planetary Chairman Chen has been exceedingly clear that your treasonous behavior would be dealt with. If today is the day you wish to die and prove her correct, that is your choice. However, the Explorer Corps vessel will not be leaving with any information except ours. I feel like I'm at an academy dance, and the two most insane guys there want me to dance, Olivia said to Akeith before flipping back to the open channel. She took a breath to calm herself before responding, Attention Combine Lances, you are to stand down immediately and shut down your mechs. If you do not stop this nonsense, we will leave without taking either of your messages, and you can rot on this planet together. When we return to Combine space, we'll tell them of your dishonorable behavior, and they can deal with you like the petulant children you seem to be. Olivia watched the larger of the Tarragon mechs, a Shadowhawk that looked to be held together with armor stripped from a dozen other mechs, as it turned toward her and fired. The laser and autocannon fire went wide, but it was close enough to be an obvious act of first aggression. That's it, Akeith. We're out of here. Shoot and scoot. Disable what you can. Don't let them bog you down, Olivia said as she pushed her Thunderbolt into a run. She lined up her first shot carefully as the area between the two Explorer Corps mechs and the dropship filled with fire seemingly traveling in every direction. The two Combine factions were firing on each other as well as at Olivia and Akif as they ran the gauntlet. "Lieutenant Levitt, we're taking fire. Is the Eulalia ready to launch?" Olivia asked as she lined up her first shot at the Shadowhawk. "Yep, we're good to go as soon as you get back. We're observing some light arms fire, but nothing directly at the ship. I think both sides here would like to get their hands on the dropship," Levitt replied over considerable background chatter. "Get back here and we're ready to go." "You got it, Lieutenant," Olivia replied as she gently squeezed the trigger, sending the crackling azure beam of artificial lightning across the grassy terrain. It smashed into the Shadowhawk's center torso, causing the mech to stumble step. It was held up briefly by the apocalyptic damage being done to the roughshod armor plating, but as the PPC cut into its internal workings, the mech fell forward and dug a furrow into the dirt. Akif split to the left, following up fire on the Shadowhawk to make sure it didn't get back up right away. The Calliope's medium pulse lasers stitched across the Hawk's legs as it tried to rise. The Jenner and Stinger flanked the Shadowhawk, each targeting the Calliope with laser and missile fire, but achieved only glancing blows as Akif kept his mech on the move. A Panther lingered a further 100 meters behind its friends, lining up a shot against Olivia's mech, which went wide but only by a few meters. Her mech's electrical systems hiccuped a bit from the electronic interference, but she kept her focus. The Basilisk lance consisted of a Griffin, Javelin, and a Marauder that all looked like museum pieces. They were hanging back and taking the opportunity for some free shots against their Combine rivals. PPC fire crisscrossed the grasslands, several shots hitting the ground and setting the grass alight. "Cut further to the left. Get behind the Tarragon lance. We're not in the kill box. Make the Basilisks shoot us through them if they want to stop us," Olivia spoke into the private comlink as she closed on the Shadowhawk, which was very nearly standing again. The mech seemed to be punch-drunk and was slow to react. Olivia took advantage and fired her 3 medium lasers along with the mech's 4 machine guns. The combined fire poured into the Shadowhawk's already ruptured torso. It fired its weapons in panic, but only the medium laser scored a hit, burning away a chunk of the Thunderbolt's left thigh armor. The lasers and machine gun rounds ripped into the Shadowhawk and hit something vital. The mech shuddered, then seemed to bend forward at the upper torso. Once again, the mech fell, this time for good. Akif chuckled to himself as he pushed his Calliope at full speed on the grassy plains. He always enjoyed going fast, and this was the perfect opportunity. Sure, the Jenner and Stinger were shooting at him, but he figured he had the advantage when he noticed the Jenner wasn't firing any more missiles. "Hey, Olivia, I don't think these guys have any ammo for their missile launcher." His comment was cut off when a PPC shot from the Panther slammed into his left arm of the Calliope, searing off armor plate and causing Akif to stumble and shuffle to regain his running cadence. "Just get to the dropship. I'm right behind you," Olivia replied as she kept running past the Shadowhawk and turned her torso toward the Panther. The battlefield had quickly become chaotic, with mechs from all 3 sides taking shots where they could while trying to maneuver. Olivia's console lit up along with the shuddering of explosions as a few LRMs pelted her right torso. The Panther was backing up to keep range on both the NEC mechs. It fired again at the Calliope and missed, only to be struck in the right torso by Akif's plasma rifle. The superheated plasma burrowed through the armor of the Panther and went internal as the mech stumbled and struggled to keep its arm up for another PPC shot. As Olivia closed on the Panther, the whole battle seemed to turn with them as both the Combine forces started to focus their efforts on the NEC duo. The Jenner managed to catch up with the Calliope and rake its back with its medium lasers, which filled Akif's cockpit with flashing red lights and an alarm which he had to ignore as he pivoted. His medium pulse lasers raked across the Jenner, slicing off one of the mech's missile pods, but otherwise causing only minor damage. "We're going to get pecked apart here," Akif said into the comm link with a considerable amount of frustration. "Just keep running. Don't stop until you're in the ship," Olivia growled as she lined up a shot on the wounded Panther. Her PPC shot smashed into the center torso and raked across the already heavily damaged right side. The mech's entire right torso and arm sheared off and crashed to the grass below. The mech stumbled, then turned to run as its PPC was now laying on the ground. Akif kept moving, twisting and turning to catch an angle on the Jenner, which was trying to stay on his 6. On the downhill side of a slight bump in the terrain, it ventured too close and Akif was able to lash out with his left arm, smashing the light mech off balance and sending it sprawling into the grass. The Stinger was still following, firing its medium laser, but was missing most of its shots. Still, the Calliope was starting to rack up damage, and that dropship never seemed so far away. In the distance, the Basilisk Marauder fired both PPCs at Olivia's Thunderbolt, and they both gouged deep into her right arm and right leg. With armor melting and shearing away, Olivia twisted and returned fire with her PPC, which missed the Marauder, but it hit the Javelin behind it, causing the light mech to step back. It didn't seem to be firing, possibly due to a lack of ammo. The Griffin fired its PPC at Olivia as well, but only got a glancing hit on her right leg, adding a little more worry to her console as she tried to figure out if she had enough armor to get to the dropship. "Can you get a hit on the Marauder with a plasma? Let's get it toasty warm," Olivia said as she lined up a shot on the Stinger. Her medium lasers danced across the ground around the running mech's feet, but did only light damage. Akif replied by twisting his mech and angling a bit back toward the basilisk lance to get a shot. He took a calming breath before squeezing the trigger. The plasma rifle in his mech's right arm spit the searing hot round across the field, and it smashed into the Marauder. Akif's eyes went wide as he watched the Marauder stop, then start to flail its arms as the plasma round had struck the heavy mech's cockpit. Over the open channel, what Olivia assumed was Simon Chen's voice screamed in absolute terror. It was the worst thing she had ever heard as the Marauder stumbled backward, then fell to the ground. She had to turn off the comm to shut out the horrible sounds of the pilot's agony. It was not how any mech warrior wanted to die, and Olivia felt a pang of guilt for having to ask Akif to take that shot. Olivia kept pushing her mech forward, even as another PPC hit her leg, causing her mech to stumble and start to drag. The knee actuator was damaged, and the grinding of metal on metal was audible even through her cockpit's soundproofing. Her console was flashing every warning light possible on that leg, but she still pushed forward. The last thing she was going to let happen was to end up the prisoner of one of these knucklehead factions. Akif was just a few hundred meters away from the Eulalia, which had lowered its ramps in preparation for their arrival. The guns of the dropship could aid Olivia if only she could get closer. More missiles pelted her mech, and then the medium laser from the Stinger cut into her leg, shearing it at the knee. The ground approached rapidly, though Olivia was able to reach out with her left arm to take the brunt of the damage. She was down, but maybe she could still get there. "Olivia, hold on, I'm coming back!" Akif yelled into the comms as he turned the Calliope around and fired at the Stinger. The plasma round bounced off the mech's shoulder, coating the armor with a partial plasma hit, but not going internal. "Just get to the ship. I'll be there in a minute," Olivia grunted as she pushed her Thunderbolt up to a crouch. Lining up her shot on the distracted Stinger, she fired her PPC and medium lasers. The flood of heat in her cockpit was intense, but the dancing beams ripped the light mech to shreds. It didn't so much fall as simply disintegrate under the fire. Olivia growled with satisfaction as she turned toward the Griffin. The Javelin was now in a sprint toward her mech, not firing, but clearly intent on closing the remaining distance. Akif took another shot with his rifle, but it passed through the Javelin's legs. Olivia took a breath, waited several seconds to let her heat sinks do their job before firing at the Griffin, who was slowly circling her crippled mech. When it fired its PPC again, the azure beam struck her center torso, boiling away precious armor and leaving a nasty charred scar. Thankfully, it didn't penetrate. Just as Olivia was about to fire her PPC in return, the Griffin was bathed in laser fire from the air. Dual large laser beams cut deeply into the Griffin's torso, followed by the bolt from a PPC which shattered the mech's fusion containment. The Griffin's mech warrior ejected, but it was too late to escape the explosion which bathed the battlefield with intense blue light. Olivia turned away, having to shield her eyes even with the Thunderbolt's adaptive view screen tempering the glare considerably. Roaring overhead, a stingray in white and metallic blue pulled up from its dive and passed over Olivia's mech. She felt a wave of relief as she realized that they had backup. "Don't say I never did anything for you," Kip spoke into the NEC private channel. "Don't say I never wanted to see you," Olivia replied as she turned her torso to face the last attacker. The Javelin's pilot saw the writing on the wall and banked the mech away from Olivia's Thunderbolt. It began to run at top speed back to the Basilisk settlement. Finally able to take a breath, Olivia furrowed her brow and looked down at the console, trying to sort out just how long this damage was going to take to repair. An explosion pulled her attention back to her view screen, where she saw the Javelin being cut down by the combined fire of the Holtz aerospace fighters. "Wait, stop," Olivia said into the comms. "Just sit back, we've got this," Kip responded as he circled for another attack run. Olivia shook her head, mouth dropping open as the aerospace fighters lined up for runs on the Basilisk settlement. "Negative on that attack run. They're not a threat any longer," Olivia pleaded into the comm. "Captain's orders are clear," Kip responded, even as his lasers cut across the walls of the settlement and into some of the nearby buildings. Ariana's Corax followed immediately with her own lasers, which obliterated the walls and set more buildings ablaze. Olivia watched in horror for a few seconds before pulling up the comm with the dropship. Levitt, tell them to pull back. I'm okay. Levitt's voice was stern and immediate. Holtz, fall back to an overwatch pattern immediately. Do not fire on the settlements. That is an order. There was no response as the aerospace fighter circled and then made an attack run on the Tarragon settlement, creating similar carnage across its defensive walls and battlements. Damn it! Stop! Olivia barked. The comms were silent as the fighters made a second run further into the settlement before pulling back and heading back into the upper atmosphere. Left in their wake were 2 settlements ablaze. Olivia dragged her mech the last few hundred meters with her ruined leg in her mech's fist. Akif stood guard as she crawled into the dropship and the doors closed. Shutting down the Thunderbolt systems, Olivia sat silently in the cockpit's darkness, fighting the desire to pummel the next person she saw to a pulp. Akif's voice on the comm was clearly concerned. Olivia, are you okay? She closed her eyes and bit her lower lip hard enough to taste iron. After several long seconds, she replied, No. End Part 10. Big thanks for those of you who are still hanging on for this series as things start to get intense. Hope you feel it was worth the wait. In the comments of the video below is a link to a scenario that you can use to play out the battle from today's episode. If you give it a try, let me know how it turns out. I'm still working on communications with Google concerning getting memberships running on the channel. Hopefully that'll be a thing soon. Until then, the best way to support the channel is by hitting that like and subscribe button and possibly sharing the video with someone else who might enjoy it. Ko-Fi is also another possible route if you want to avoid YouTube entirely and want to support what we're doing here. Take care, and I'll see you soon in new Explorer Core videos every Monday and others throughout the week. Now go out and make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.